Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 99. Hard
99?
to believe.
99?
99.
Like Agent 99?
Like Agent 99? I don't know who Agent 99
Get Smart?
is.
You don't remember Get Smart?
Oh, I do remember Get
With the
Smart.
shoe phone?
Yeah, well, and it's a good thing we're
God, we're old.
it's a good thing we're talking about using focus blocks to get your productivity back on track, because we're not being really focused at the moment. We're having a lot of silliness in between our recordings of episodes today. But it is one of our secrets to productivity, to batch record these episodes. Hint, hint, hint.
It fun.
And keep it fun. There's lots of giggling going on and lots of cat distractions. But the truth is, we have something really exciting to share with you. And this is something that Brad came up with that has been working so well for him in terms of increasing focus. And when you increase focus, you increase productivity.
Yep. So this is using focus blocks to get your productivity back on track. And because of my nature, I'm not going to toot my horn too much, because
I will.
There's definitely things that I'm still failing at massively with my productivity, but I use this to get underway with just getting back on track with my productivity. Let's start with the quote, though.
Okay. Do I get to read the quote?
I think she's going to read the quote.
This is an awesome quote. You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. Winston Churchill. So I want to know why you picked that quote, because Brad picked the quote today.
Well, the throwing stones at every dog that barks thing is relevant directly to your phone and the internet and social media.
Squirrel.
Those are barking dogs. And every time you stop and look at your phone, every time you stop and look at your email, every time, if you're like me, you're on Reddit or Facebook or Instagram or whatever your social media du jour is, that's a barking dog that just distracted you, and you're not going to reach your destination because you're off looking at that silliness. As much fun as it is, as much eye candy as there is in Instagram, as much as you love to see the little like button or the happy button on Facebook, you're wasting a lot of time by doing that, and the distractions alone kill you. Even if you're not engaged with them, it takes you out of flow. And what we're all about here is flow. We want to be able to get into that flow state, whether it's straight up creativity or writing. Well, writing is creativity. Whatever it is,
programming, right?
Exactly.
Or finishing a project. In our last episode, when we were talking about the creator, we talked about how creators are great at starting and not finishing projects.
Right.
And one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur, especially if you're a solopreneur working from home, then you wear a lot of different hats. And I found that Brad was really struggling with all the different projects that were going on at the same time that he was responsible for. I feel incredibly lucky. I get to share my business, right? That I'm not trying to do it all by myself, but the two of us, even dividing the hats, there's still a lot of freaking hats.
Right. And a little bit more backstory here. So I worked in software for 25 years, and I built up a big habit of getting distracted, whether that was on the internet or with my phone or whatever it is. Run off to get coffee, go to the bathroom, walk away from the desk, and actually take myself out of flow. Sometimes that can be, whether you want to admit it or not, it's a lack of desire. It's the same reason that people don't want to meditate, is that they don't want to be quiet and alone with their thoughts, which is not necessarily thoughts with a flow state, but alone just working on one thing. And so for me, it was quite a bit like that. And I built up a lot of bad habits. And over the last couple of years working for myself or for ourselves, that was just eating my shorts in terms of actually getting work done towards the business. So I finally just did some searching on the internet, ended up on a blog, which I like because I'm a guy, called the Art of Manliness blog.
I can honestly say I have never visited that blog.
It's really quite good. It's long form pieces. Well, maybe your husband will like it. Anyways,
It wasn't a judgment statement.
They had a great series on, and we'll put that in the show notes. They had a
Yeah.
great series on focus, and I poked my way through it. And like an unfocused person, I just scanned through a lot of the stuff, but there were some things that really, really hit home about how to improve focus. And so what I did was I said, okay, I know a little bit about creating good habits from my athletic work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just 10-minute focus blocks. Literally, Brad, you're 50 years old. You can sit there for 10 minutes and focus on one task. So I set some structure around what that would be. And that was going to be no notifications on my phone, no notifications from my browser or on the desktop. It was going to be one browser tab only open.
The one you were working on, correct?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what I do involves a lot of browser tabs a lot of the time. But I always had many more than that open that I needed. Ad-free music. And we can talk about that some more. We have Amazon Prime. So if you have Prime, you have Amazon Music. It's not the one with millions and millions of songs, but it has quite a bit. And that's
enough for a 10-minute focus block,
exactly.
Which is like 2 songs.
Exactly. Maybe you pay for Spotify, maybe you pay for Pandora, maybe you've got a bunch of CDs that you love to listen to.
Or iTunes on your computer, right? You could.
Yeah, as long as it's ad free. Yeah. And I had a couple of our clients said they really can't work to music with lyrics, but there's a lot of great stuff. And we'll give you a lot of ambient stuff. We'll give you some links to that.
And people are finding
YouTube.
Some really cool ambient stuff just on YouTube, right?
Yeah, on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So ad-free music, no food, no leaving the desk. So you got to take your bathroom break ahead of time. The phone's on do not disturb. Have a plan for what's going to happen in that 10-minute block, and maybe take a minute ahead of time just to have some quiet time ahead of time to get the focus going.
And were you using a timer for the 10-minute blocks to notify you of when the 10 minutes was up?
Yeah. And I put a timer on my desktop. You could just as easily use your phone one. I got one called Be Focused for the Mac. It was free. It's real straightforward to use. So I started with 10 minutes, and 10 minutes is not really that scary. So I think most people can take that on. But if you're working right now, or if you're finding yourself distracted, or you're wondering about it, take a look at how well you're doing in terms of not checking your email, not checking another browser tab, not checking your phone. See whether you are actually focusing for 10 minutes. Really 10 minutes, not looking at another device, not getting up, actually putting all of your focus into one job for 10 minutes.
And what I think I noticed, like watching you go through this experience in that first week or two, you didn't put pressure on yourself for how many of these focus blocks you did in a day. Like you were celebrating if you got 1 or 2 focus blocks done. So it wasn't about like every 10 minutes you're starting a new focus block.
Right. The habit here is not to increase. We're just adding one habit. We're not trying to add a habit of how many focus blocks I can get into a day. What we're trying to do is build our chops and build our ability to focus. And so I did for the first week, 10-minute focus blocks, and maybe I'd do a few a day. And then the next week I added 10 minutes, so 20 minutes. So weekly I added 10 minutes until I got to 60 minutes. And the celebrations were all about simply completing a focus block, not about, hey, I did 2 today, or hey, I did 5 today. It was just about increasing my ability to actually do this exercise, which is to focus on one thing for an amount of time.
And you weren't trying to finish a project, right?
That's right.
So the other thing about the focus blocks that is really important to remember is that you're just making progress. So I know you created a really cool tool for yourself on what to do inside the focus blocks. Can you share about that?
Yeah, definitely. So what I realized once I got better at, once I reached that 60-minute thing, was that what I desired was to be able to engage more with what the work was that I was doing. And I think this is something, whether you take on these focus blocks or whether you have some other approach, we want everyone to connect with their big why when they're doing their work. And we've talked about big why before. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But the ability to work on a focus block and have that in the frame of your mind, hey, this is going to do this for my business. This is exciting because of this. Or maybe it's not exciting, but it's an important thing for me to do a great job on this because this is this part of my business. I know that's kind of general, but so if you're on YouTube, you can see these. I'm going to give you a template that you can look at. I made these little squares of paper.
And of course, Manette had a super cool tool, a binder clip,
and
an awesome hole punch.
I identified major work themes that I have in our business. One of them is just normal dailies where I'm looking at financials and email and things like that. Another one is customer engagement. Another one is improving one of our Facebook funnels. So each one of those gets a sheet of paper. And I'm going to have then focus blocks or partial focus blocks associated with each one. And then there's just a few sentences that say, this is why this is important, Brad. This is why you should be excited about this, as a reminder that I can look at before I start the focus block.
Can you give a really specific example and maybe read one?
Sure. So the one on the top is for improvements to our Creative Business Academy and engagement in the academy.
Accelerator.
I'm sorry, the accelerator. Oh, I have it written wrong.
I know.
So it just says, these are our people. Treat them beyond great. Anything I can do here means more delighted customers that ascend through our customer value journey, which we'll talk about also. But really, you want people to get to the point where they buy from you, and then they give you a testimonial, and then they buy something even more exciting from you.
And then they give you referrals, and they send people to you because they become raving fans.
That's right. So the last thing I said was, we're helping them with an exclamation mark. So those are things that just help me engage with the task at hand. It may be a minuscule part of a larger project, but it's going to be an hour's worth of work. And there needs to be a reason that I want to do a great job on it. And I want to sit there and focus on it for an hour.
So can I give a really specific?
Finally, the only other thing is, sometimes you're going to have a work theme that maybe just deserves 30 minutes. Well, you can just put 30 minutes or you can put an hour, and then that's how long you're going to focus on it. So I have those in a little binder in front of me, and I can actually look at them. I know that's totally anal, but it's an effective way to connect with the work that you're doing.
So I want to say two things about that. First of all, a great example of how he spent one of those hours was fixing our Google Calendar, our public Google Calendar for our different membership groups, because we have two of them. So we had people complaining because they could see meetings for both groups and they couldn't figure out how to accommodate this in their own calendar. So there was a little client frustration around how things were showing up in the Google Calendar. So one of those hours, he spent detaching the two calendars so that they no longer showed all the activities, but were clear about which activities were for which group. So huge client satisfaction just from something as simple, even though it was time consuming, to fix the Google Calendar. So that was one thing. The other thing I want to say is that if you listen to our 4-part series on unique productivity styles, you'll remember that Brad's a contemplator, and he actually is really good at details. He's really good at seeing all the action steps that are required. And it can be kind of overwhelming because oftentimes for any particular project, there are many, 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 many action steps. So any of you that are doing digital marketing or creating sales funnels online know that creating any kind of online campaign requires a lot of steps, completely outside of just the content creation and deciding what it is that you're offering or sharing with your clients. So Brad had all these tasks either in his head, in his to-do list, or in Jira, which is an online programming tool that he uses that he can share more about. But all that stuff was out there floating around, creating overwhelm instead of focus. And so the focus blocks have allowed him to dip into one part of one project at a time without getting overwhelmed from seeing all of the tasks required.
Right. And these are more digestible pieces. They fit into focus blocks. And it's unitasking. It's not multitasking. This is all about unitasking. It's about just focusing on that one thing and not allowing other work items or other life items to get in the way of your singular focus on that task.
And this is about flow. Focus blocks are about flow, because I just read a great article in the current issue of Spirituality and Health magazine about flow.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a little pop-up box related to it, specifically about multitasking. And multitasking is not useful or valuable. It doesn't help you get things done. I'm tired of hearing women in particular do this, I think, more than men. I'm great at multitasking. Well, actually, you're not. So nothing's getting your full attention, and you're not getting into the flow state. You're actually being completely distracted by these different ideas. It's the same reason why, when you have kids and you're on the phone and your kids are trying to talk to you, it's so incredibly annoying that you can't split your attention between two conversations. He even said the same is true if you're like typing a post on Facebook with the TV on in the background, that it's not a kind of wholehearted or whole brain use of your time and attention. So that concept of unitasking and the concept of flow both work beautifully inside of focus blocks, because Brad has specific rules that he set up ahead of time, structure that he set up ahead of time, so that he can step into very quickly the focus block.
Right.
And I think the rules are a really important part of that. So not only understanding what to do with the focus block, but preparing yourself to step into focus instantly helps you get into flow so much faster.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing it's critical to remember, if you think you're going to take this on or do something similar, this is about training the muscle between your ears. This is about brain training. It's a muscle just like any other. And when you start, you're not going to be very good at it. And that's why
just like meditation, monkey mind.
Exactly. And that's why you start with something like 10 minutes, or maybe it's 1 minute for you if it's a really terminal case. But it's interesting because so you get better at it, obviously. It doesn't matter that you do 10 extra minutes a week. Maybe you get stuck on 10 minutes for a month. That everybody's going to go at their own speed. But what this lets you do in training your brain is it forces you out of those bad habits. And you also find that it forces you to push through, what's the best way to describe this? I come to critical points during work where I'll get to a tough spot and I'll let myself be distracted because I don't want to knuckle down or really engage all the things that I need to do. Like it happens with technical things. I'm not sure. Maybe the same thing could happen.
For me, it happens with writing books or blogs or content creation. Like yesterday, I was mapping out the new content for the Creative Business Accelerator. And every time I would feel really stuck and trying to think through something, I would go do some research or go check my Facebook.
Right. And I imagine the same thing could happen with drawing or painting or making music.
Or video editing or all the other creative endeavors that we're all attempting to do on a daily basis.
Right. And you get to that point and it's a critical point where, I'm stuck on this. And, you're a 5-year-old and you want to kick the can and walk away or whatever. And it's just as easy to look at your phone or just as easy to pull up a browser tab and look at Facebook or whatever it is. That's the part that you're retraining your brain to stop doing. That's the part where you gotta knuckle down. And this is very, very similar to meditation for anybody that's out there that's done that. And I hear you out there that's saying, I tried meditation once and I couldn't stand it. This is the practice part, and it actually takes time, and you're not horrible because you can't do it to start, but you really have to pull up your big boy pants and actually get through those things.
I think we should do a whole episode on the connection between mindfulness and productivity. That would be a really great topic to explore.
Good one.
So let's wrap this up and maybe just summarize using focus blocks and why they work real quickly. And also, you didn't mention, and I know this was a deeply impactful book, was Cal Newport's Deep Work.
Yeah, a lot of this journey has come from reading that book, Deep Work. It's a fantastic book. I suggest it to anybody. And I read it, listened to it, said, I'm going to do all these things, and then never really did them. But it was the seed for these focus blocks, and I think that I'll pat myself on the back for the focus blocks starting at 10 minutes, because it gave me the opportunity to actually get to what Cal Newport's talking about, which is longer focus blocks. So where am I with this? I set these things up to slowly build into longer focus blocks where I'm not being distracted and I'm just working on one thing. I've got major themes that I work on where I can pull tasks related to those and just focus on those. I set myself up a structure around a focus block to ensure that I don't break out of it. If I start moving past 60 minutes, I might have to give myself the opportunity to take a bathroom break. What I'm not good at yet is doing lots of focus blocks, and that's really where I want to improve. I'm not religious.
Meaning many focus blocks during the day.
Yeah, the whole point is that once I get good at a focus block, then I want to be able to add more of them.
It seemed like when you got to 40 minutes, you were great. But then when you got to the 50 and 60 minute ones, that the wheels started to come off.
Yeah, I think I suffered a little bit from having had success and then backing away from it a little bit.
Well, I'm wondering if that as people are working through these focus blocks, that there's, for each person, that there's a prime amount of time, like maybe 40 minutes is like perfect for you.
There may be, whatever works for you.
Yeah, so it's not about the length of time.
Right. So I'm not great at pre-planning these focus blocks, and I think that really needs to be a next step, so that there's because it's too easy to say, oh, I'm just going to work in my old style and not be really engaged.
When you say pre-planning, are you talking about time blocking? So you're putting the focus blocks into your calendar,
exactly,
as well as pre-planning what particular project you're going to focus on?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So just more intention, more mindfulness about what the block will be and when it will be. And, that might be something you do in your big six the night before. Hey, tomorrow I am going to work on this for this amount of time.
And we'll be talking about the big six. If you don't know what he's talking about, we'll be talking about that in upcoming episodes. And we've talked about it in the past. But the secret to this that Brad hasn't mentioned that he's really good at is planning, is the big picture planning, as well as the quarterly, monthly, and weekly planning. So it's easy to figure out what to do during your focus blocks because he's already put a lot of time into planning.
Sure. I know what tasks I need to do. It's just a matter of doing them. So what's working?
There's a big gap there, isn't there? Between knowing what to do and actually getting it done.
Yeah.
Kind of like taxes.
Easy to talk about it, right? What's working? Now I'm much better at pushing through that critical point that I was talking about, where I get it's easy to be distracted. It's easy to let myself get called away because I can't quite figure out what to do next. And I really like the addition of these major work themes that allow me to connect more closely with the work that I'm doing. It's the important part is to just keep coming back to them and keep reviewing them. I think that's all we really want to say right now. I'm moving forward into tracking time now more closely so that I can then start to build on that and sort of unify all of these things. But I hope for you out there, dear listener, that next time you're working, take a look at yourself, take a look at how you're working, take a look at how much you're being distracted by the internet. Maybe you're awesome already and you don't have to worry about these things. Maybe you're like me with a chronic case of distraction and you need to find a way to get further, and hopefully these will work for you.
Yeah, it's so true. And every time he kept saying he was struggling with focus, I didn't get it, right? I might struggle with not knowing what tasks to get done because I hadn't done my planning. But once I know what to do, I'm a workaholic, right? I'm the commander who's sitting there doing deep work. So it was really fascinating to me to see the way that we approach this aspect of our business differently. And it's been fun watching you work through the focus block concept.
It's the contemplator in me, I guess.
It is totally the contemplator, and the contemplator loves to fix stuff, right? You love to figure it out and put structure around things that create flow, right? So structure and flow. We keep telling you guys, you're going to get tired of us saying it, I'm sure, but it really is a powerful combination to create structure to increase flow. And when you increase flow, you increase not only your productivity, but also your satisfaction.
Yeah. And one other thing, just to riff off of that a little bit, one of the wins that I hadn't really celebrated is that a lot of times I'll get to 60 minutes and be in flow and just keep pushing for another 30 minutes because I'm in that flow state and I don't want to walk away. That's the win, right? Where I've set myself up to succeed by setting an environment that allowed me to get into a flow state.
Awesome. We got to go. It's time for lunch.
Yum.
But before we do that, wait. If you haven't taken the productivity style quiz, we highly encourage you to do that. Go to pathtoprofitacademy.com/UPS quiz, and make sure you find out what your unique productivity style is and shoot us an email and let us know. Are we a whole community of commanders, contemplators, creators, conductors, or are we a blend? We think there's a lot of creators out there, and we're kind of a blend ourselves. It's a super cool quiz. Go take it, and we'll see you on the next episode, which is our 100th episode.
Oh my goodness, 100?
I know, 100 times we've sat behind these microphones
well,
and
it's easy
done
to talk
this
to you,
recording.
though.
I know, it's easy to talk to you, honey, too. And we haven't really planned our topic for the 100th episode, but it will be cool.
Good stuff.
See you later.